All right, welcome back to Inspired Forward. I'm Dan Trinidad, and I'm really excited to have Lance and Brandy Salazar as our guests today. Lance spent 20 years as a clinical pharmacist. Brandy spent 20 very successful years in the real estate investment world. They've been married since 2005 and have two beautiful daughters. Recently, they co-authored a book with Hal Elrod called The Miracle Morning for Couples, Create Legendary Connection, One Morning at a Time. Additionally, they've created a project called Legendary Couples with Kids to really share everything they've learned. Welcome, Brandy and Lance.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Dan.
I'm really excited to hear your story. So you guys were on a path in your careers, I'm sure, and you found each other and got married. And tell me.
I think our story is pretty similar to a lot of other, especially like professional couples. We both had careers and they were thriving careers and we enjoyed what we did. And our relationship was really lovely. Clearly we fell in love and got married. And it wasn't until we had kids that our relationship started to struggle. And, both having careers and feeling like we had a full life prior to having our first daughter, adding the responsibility and, just the time and energy that it takes to raise a human, really put our relationship in the back seat. And so we found ourselves having another daughter.
Yeah.
Why not?
And we haven't figured the first one out. Maybe we can if we haven't.
Yeah, right. It's like, what is it? Like this, I guess it's like, we all get caught up in this whole thing of what you're supposed to do next, right? It's like, okay, you meet each other. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to get engaged. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to have the kids. You're supposed to get the bigger house. You're supposed to then have the other kid because that kid needs a kid.
Right. And it's family time. Yeah.
We were checking all the boxes that society had created for, I think, most of us, right? It's like Brandy says, we were led to believe that we were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and we were crossing off those boxes. And, but here's the interesting thing. I think parenthood is a journey that I think just smacks people in the face.
Yeah.
And as much as people, have been parents for all of time, right? And there's so many people that try to give you advice on it, it's hard. It's really, really hard. I think it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think what happens when you have that career and you're trying to be a parent and raise this person to, I don't know, for me, it was like keeping her alive. My priorities to Brandy just disappeared. It was like I lost focus.
They became really small because there were all these other, like think about, necessities in life, like the things that are needs, like we believe and we know, right? We have to have money. And, now you have this new child and you want to provide a life that's even better than, you were providing before. And, so the idea of let's work on our relationship never really came up for us.
I take it for granted, right?
I think
it's one thing you don't have to worry about because you got big stuff happening.
Right. Mm-hmm. I think it's the one area, at least for me, and looking back on it, that I didn't feel as though I needed to, quote unquote, level up. Right. I felt like I always needed to level up my career. And I think Brandy felt the same way.
Oh,
and then as a parent, you're always trying to sort of level up because it's all new. It's all changing and it's fast paced. It really is as the child constantly is evolving and getting bigger and whatever else. But I think our marriage, I think you just make the assumption that you're supposed to coexist. You just sort of, live in this house together and you're trying to raise this person, forgetting, at least for me, that I needed to nurture my relationship with Brandy. I needed to, quote unquote, level it up.
Right.
So what was the aha moment? So, everything's cooking, you're growing, you got a couple kids, and where was the realization that, we got a problem here and we're not happy?
It was ongoing, honestly. After we had our first daughter, she was about 1.5 years and we started marriage counseling. And, we put the Band-Aid on for a little while and, fixed a couple of the things that were really broken and moved on, had our second daughter. And then it was at that point where, a few years into having Natalie, where it just was, we were so disconnected and so separated that the complacency had started to turn into resentment. And it was really just this constant pointing the finger at the other, when it came to our own personal happiness or what wasn't being done, or the frustrations all started to weigh on the marriage. It was like the elephant in the room, especially as other things in our lives started, to improve. It's like I would go to the office and, I'd have accolades just from winning and, crushing a deal, or accolades socially because people are like, you're awesome,
Right.
and then I'd come home and it's like, hey, you don't think I'm as awesome as I am.
And then going back to what, you said, I think before you probably started recording this, Dan, where you read in the book about my feelings of jealousy toward Brandy crushing it. So I don't think it's that I didn't think she was awesome, is that I was envious of the awesomeness that she was, that she was receiving or portraying, in her work and in her business.
Our love for ourselves.
Yeah. And I just wasn't having that. I wasn't experiencing that. And so, in a lot of ways I was trying to pull her down, really, rather than not believe she was awesome. It was believing that I wasn't, but I wanted to maintain a status quo, of her, bringing her back down to my level, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then on the flip side, I was aggressively trying to coach him and trying to drag him into personal growth and development and, work harder, try harder, push harder, that whole thing that I was stuck in. And so there was just like this, it really became like a moment of, we can't do this anymore.
It's just done.
It's done. Like, this is over. Like, separation, you need to find an apartment or whatever the heck you want to live in, but you're not living here. We need to figure out how we're going to talk to the kids. Like, it's too far gone.
Wow.
We were done.
Yeah.
So you obviously aren't done. So when you're done, something clicked on, and you decided that you really didn't want it to be done, or you wanted to give it another chance. How did, kind of give me a step-by-step play of how to turn it around?
Well, the interesting part about that, Dan, is that in the foundation of our, relationship philosophy is based on those 4 legendary relationship elements, and the first one being you. And so we have principles behind the you, like emotional intelligence and health and happiness, and for me, confidence. And there is a journey for each person. So the funny thing is, you asking that question, when it comes to the first part of us resurrecting our marriage, you're going to get a slightly different answer, because each one of us had our own journeys. In that. It does begin with, growing a better you, right? Becoming a better individual. And so we firmly believe that your own personal growth and your own personal development is vital. It is necessary, is paramount to...
It's the foundation.
It's the foundation of being a better spouse, being a better parent, even being a better person, a better coworker, all of it.
Right.
So how could you love someone if you don't love yourself?
Right.
Yeah. Amen. And so what started to happen is there was a period of time where we were going down the separation path, and Lance had energetically finally left the expectation of me providing the happiness for him. And I was no longer putting pressure of the relationship on him, because it was over.
It didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter anymore. And there was something that happened, sometimes, people are like, so like, what did it take? And for us, it really did take a scary moment like that, and saying, no, it is over. Like, we're done. And so drawing that line in the sand shifted something in him. And he went and found his own tribe and his own journey. And he started doing CrossFit and improving his health and having a new tribe of men that were, moving forward. He went to Hal Elrod's Best Year Ever Blueprint event, and met again another group of his own people. Like, I wasn't dragging him to the event. He went on his own and met his own people that, didn't have to do with me. And so he started to develop his own confidence and his own stride and what,
Right.
it's like that whole thing, you said in the beginning, like people that lose their excitement and their why, like he was starting to develop his own self-love and his own why. So simultaneously, I hire one of the best coaches of my life, a man by the name of Rock Thomas.
Oh,
And
Rock.
yeah, he's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I hire Rock, and I start coaching with him. And as I'm going through, the things going on in my life and whatever else, he does this magnificent job of handing me my ass. And so really, so I would say, struggling here. And he's like, so how are you showing up in that? And
Uh-huh.
what is this a reflection of? And where is this coming from? And what's your part on things? And I started to see myself not in a negative light, but in a more realistic light. Like I had a massive ego, and, and I honestly believe that success does that to those of us that experience it at a young age and really fast. And so not only are you having this like dollar experience where you're winning, but there's this social component where everyone around you, right, telling you how awesome you are all the time. And it doesn't mean that I'm not awesome, but it crossed a line for me where I didn't see my own BS in my relationship because I thought I was so awesome.
So,
And
so it was all him, is what
all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
It's his fault. It's his.
Right. Yes. And so, I mean, I didn't want to look at the fact that I was hard to live with. Like I'm a hard driver. I'm, emasculating my husband because I basically want to wear the pants and all the things, that doesn't create it doesn't help foster or breed a positive union, a positive partnership and team in a relationship. So he started to help me see my own DNA on it. And then I'm, having coffee with a dear girlfriend of mine and mentor. She's also in the real estate business. And we're sitting having coffee and we're, talking about something completely different. And somehow it comes out that, I'm not going to be married anymore. And she's like, whoa, let's talk about that. And same thing, just like Rock. And she handed it to me in an even clearer way. And she took me down the journey of her own divorce and how that looks for not only me, but how it looks for the kids. And basically that I hadn't tried enough. I hadn't tried hard enough. And the things that I was complaining about aren't the real things. Like there's so many bigger things that happen in relationships and can happen in relationships. And to look at all the amazing things that Lance did offer. And what if I, helped nurture an environment for him to grow in a safe space and, all this stuff. And I'm sitting here going, holy Toledo, in tears at Karen's Bakery in Folsom, just, oh my gosh. And so I came home to Lance and I was like, all right, we're not getting a divorce. Not only are we not going to get divorced, but we're going to do this and it's going to be awesome. And, I don't know exactly what it's going to take, but we're able to crush other things. And like, give me a business idea. I'll create a plan and we'll go forward with it. He's been in the health space for how many years? Same thing. Like, you want to lose 20 pounds. Here's the plan. Here's all the things, vision, plan, action, rinse, repeat.
Now let's apply it to our marriage.
Let's apply it to our marriage. Like, why have we not done the things that we know to be successful and applied it and given it the same commitment? That was the other thing. Like I'd never committed to my marriage the way I committed to my business. Never.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So was it at that point you started to see things start to change because both of your perspectives were a little bit different?
Yeah. We both were going on our own journey, figuring out our own DNA on the situation, ourselves growing, deciding that, hey, we actually like each other again. But one of the things that was pretty pivotal in really getting our relationship to thrive was letting go. So what a lot of the things that we were doing before, like Brandy said, fixing what was broken, we would put Band-Aids on situations, right? It was sort of like, okay, a good moment would happen and suddenly, okay, our relationship's okay. And we would forget about making that a priority, right? You can't just close a deal and then stop closing more deals, right? You can't just, but that's kind of what we were doing, was like, okay, great. We had a great, let's say a night of sex or something, or a great date. And like, oh, we're close now, you know?
Yeah.
And then things would fall apart again. And we're like, we can't go through this cycle of just getting back to the starting line. It's like 2 steps backwards, 2 steps forward. We're like, how do we actually
go forward?
How do we keep moving
forward? Yeah.
Cast the vision. What can we do every
How do we
single
lead
day?
gen for our marriage?
Right. You know, we're like, we're done with this cycle. We're done with it. Because I would even remember I would be sitting next to Brandy in a moment where this was before things were,
she was being nice, you were
going
to say.
Well, you were close to me. You felt close to me, right? And I would sit there and I would think, I wonder when this is going to suck again. I wonder when this is not going to be good. And I wanted to let go of that being the cycle of our marriage.
Yeah. So I mean, a big part of this is just letting go of the past problems, right? Like not going back to, this is what you did. This is what you used to do. This, like letting that go, I would think.
Right. Taking the best of each one of us and combining each of our strengths to create the most magnificent team possible. We talk a lot about this where, you know, in a team, like I like football analogies where, you know, you've got a quarterback who throws the ball, you've got a wide receiver who has to catch the ball, and they have to do their specific job well in order to win the game. You know, the quarterback can't get mad at the wide receiver for not being able to throw a perfect pass, and the wide receiver can't get mad at the quarterback for not being able to catch, you know, a magnificent pass. And so each person on the team brings their strengths in order to win the game. And that's what we did. We decided, well, Lance, what are you great at? What are your roles? What are your strengths? How can you move this bus forward? And same with Brandy. This is what you're great at. And we've carried that even into like
our business. Yeah, we have a business now.
And the way we even wrote the book.
Yeah.
You know, we've focused on what we're best at in order to cast the vision of what we want versus going, well, I'm stuck at this, so I need to get better at this. That's not what we wanted to achieve.
And there is an element of getting better, you know, like think about the things that Rock brought to my attention, right? Of emasculating my husband and you know, bringing this masculine energy into our relationship all the time. Like I'd get home from the office and I'd be on one, and then that continues right into the evening and then into the morning, and that becomes the cycle. And so I did have to look into that and say, what is it? What is your need for control all the time? Like, what are you so afraid of for him? What, messing something up? Or like, what's the worst that's going to happen if you begin to relinquish some control and, you know, whatever else? Like I could say all the things. So there is an element of growing and improving yourself. But the problem is we were constantly pointing the finger at the other person where we were strong and it came natural to us, but they weren't great at it. It would be like, well, you always forget to do that. Well, you never do. So why don't you do it?
I get it.
You know?
So how did you get to a point of, I mean, I read the book and you guys quit your careers. So why, you know, was that needed to make your relationship stronger? Or?
No, not to make the relationship stronger, but here's what happened for us.
No, we don't want to advocate for people completely, you know, changing their course, you know.
You changed a lot of stuff.
We committed to a very extreme journey because of how we got a taste of what it looks like to truly design your life. And so when you sit down and you design your marriage and you act upon it and you take those courageous steps and make the commitments and you start to experience the fruits of that labor, you then start to look at other areas in your life. What would, if we have got one shot parenting these kids and, you know, we have X amount of years, like what would it look like to optimize that and to create the best vision that we could possibly create and make it happen? What would it look like if we were a family unit and we created a vision for our family? Like, what would this look like? That's what happened. And it was really the catalyst of out of a course we were creating for couples.
Yeah. We had already felt as though we were growing as a couple. So we just looked at our course for couples through the lens of parenting.
Or other areas of life.
Of what places we wanted to improve upon. and we suddenly, establishing core values and strengths. And we thought, well, we're not living the life that we truly desire. So how do we get there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I don't know how long ago now, maybe a couple of years, but Lance, we're all Facebook friends, and Lance had posted something that just opened up his heart, and you don't usually see somebody acknowledging challenges and problems and commitments, and that he was committed to change. And I'm telling you, I shared that story, and it impacted me positive. I mean, in a huge way, in that. I mean, just a man kind of stepping up and saying, we're about to fail, and we've got a lot of work to do, and I mean, that was really moving, and thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. I think sometimes what happens is that, especially in marriage and in parenting, and I think that society is sort of breaking the stigma around it, but people don't want to talk about it, right? Facebook is a highlight reel, and I think things are starting to shift a little bit. But one of the things I remember when Brandy and I were considering divorce was, Brandy even mentioned, he goes, I hate the life we portray on Facebook. Yeah. Because it's not real. Right. It's not real.
Or even just in life in general, we'd have friends come over, we'd throw parties at our, big fancy house, and, everybody would walk in, and it's just like, oh, you guys are so cute, and you look at your beautiful daughters and your house and your careers and all this. Look at the fancy cars. It's all so nice. And it's like, yeah, but we're broken inside.
Yeah.
I don't even like him. Right? I mean, he's cute and all, but
and we're not saying you can't have all those things and have an amazing marriage. It just wasn't working for us.
It wasn't working for us. And what we found when we started to evaluate like what we really wanted is we wanted time. We wanted time because now we'd fallen in love with each other, and we were like, okay, wait a minute. We've done all this work. We've, accumulated money and things. And what if we dropped our expenses way down and bought time? What if we traded all this money and stuff in for time, and we had more time for each other? We had more time for our health. We had more time for our kids. Like, that's really what we want. So what does that look like? And it looked like selling the elephant in the room, which was the, big house that we had a, bunch of money that we had put into it, a bunch of our capital. And we were like, okay, so at the very least we could take a couple of years sabbatical and have no bills. Right. So let's try that and see what it does.
That's a big step. That's cool.
It was scary.
Was it scary?
Oh, very, very scary.
Scary,
because you go, all your life has been accomplishing and growing and more, and we're all fooled by that world,
We really are.
It's bigger is better, and we strive for that, and we realize that when you have it, it's a very, very temporary high and excitement, and you go back to however you were. If you were really happy before, you're really happy. If you're struggling with things before you get a big old house, now you're struggling with things again. So
we knew that on the inside. Like, if you would have asked us, does this house make you happy? I knew logically, right? No, it's not. That's not what brings me happiness. I know what brings me happiness. Like, the joy of the experiences that I have with the people that I love is like top on the list, right?
Yeah.
And so we knew that. However, when you've worked so hard to feed this, I guess ego, I don't know what it is really. Like, you've worked so hard to feed this area that it's still scary, because you're like, okay, really, like, I worked so hard for this. We've done so much for this lifestyle that we've created for us and our kids. And, they go to the private schools and like all this stuff. Like, are we really going to leave everything that we know? We're going to leave the accolades of our careers. We're going to leave the, fancy stuff that we'd accumulated. And what is that going to feel like? Like, that's the scary thing. You're like, am I going to feel like I'm not worthy anymore? And the truth of the matter is it feels great because what you lose, right. Think about the weight off your chest of trying to maintain all of this for what? And so now we have a lot less to maintain. and a lot more
Do you
for free.
together, do you go back to now maybe having some goals and ambitions together? Because clearly writing the book and starting a group to help people, that's, forming another company, and you're going to get that popularity back, and you already are. I mean, I hear lots of people talking about the two of you, and
Yeah, but
so
it's different
Yeah,
now.
the focus is different. Before, I
Yeah.
think it was, how do we make $1 million? And I think now it's how do we help 1 million people?
yeah,
You
Yeah,
know,
and when it comes to dollars, we now know that it's a lot less that we need to survive, because I think we confuse that in life. We
for sure.
confuse what we need to survive versus what we need to impress people. Like it's a really weird thing, and it's hard to explain until you're out of it. I mean, we're over 2 years out of it now. And so we don't have the same mindset around money that we used to have. However, there are certain things that, yeah, absolutely, that we want to grow towards. Like, we live in a really small house now. We homeschool our kids, and our kids are already like, you know what? We want our own rooms now. And we're like, all right. So, yeah, they're designing a house
and
that
two
they want us to
bathrooms.
build. Yeah, we
We
want
have one bathroom for 2 years.
Yeah,
Wow.
we do. And 4 of us. I mean, we have 4 butts.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
toilet gets used, Dan.
So they do. So yes, the answer is yes. We do have, like, we're drawing out a new house to build, and the kids especially. This is more their dream at this point.
Right. It's been a beautiful thing, because when we moved here, Dan, we knew that it was going to be probably a little challenging for them to go. Like, I always joke about this. The last house we were in had 4 toilets and 10 sinks. 10 places to wash your hands and 4 places to go to the bathroom. This one has 2 sinks, the bathroom and kitchen sink, and 1 toilet.
Yep.
And so we had to bring them along the journey. Like, what do you guys want in this? This is an adventure. Don't think of it as like scaling back. Think of it as like an adventure. And, they said, we want chickens. And so we got chickens. They, as part of their homeschool journey, they taught us how to raise chickens.
Yeah.
And so now, with the next growth, like you've asked about, which I think is a beautiful question, because yes, we have new dreams. They know that they're going to be brought along on the journey.
They get to help design this next phase of our lives, because the other piece to all of this is we believe in constantly growing. If you are not growing, you are dying. And that is in every area of your life. And no question, right? And so, but what we needed was a reset on our priorities. I had adrenal fatigue from working so hard and being so stressed out. We were both not in great shape. Our kids were having, like, one of them was having anxiety, one of them was having stomach issues. Like, where are our priorities, right? And so we just needed a life reset, and not everybody can do that, right? Not everybody even wants to. We didn't know we wanted to, but
we were like, wait a second.
Yeah, but now we have the foundation. Like, our health is insanely optimal right now. Like, all of us, like, everybody eats really well, moving our bodies, taking proper supplements, knowing what it takes to fuel our bodies, like all the things that, like, connection with each other, connection with our kids, all of it, like, as
you're
a family.
happy. I mean, you created happiness.
Right. And we're pleased with what we've done, but we also want to stress that, you can evaluate a few parts of your life without turning it completely upside down like
Absolutely,
we did.
you can.
I mean, what we did was pretty extreme, and we recognize that. But we also know that with a few shifts in priorities and core values, you can live the life you have and still move it forward by just adjusting those priorities and moving them forward.
And that means your schedule.
Yeah.
It's time. Time. That's what
Time
it is.
is.
What are we giving our time? It's time. That's it. That's all we've got. That's the only currency.
See, when you're in your teens and you're in your 20s, you don't really think about time, and you feel like it's it's abundant and it goes on forever. And as you grow up, you realize that time is the only thing it's about, and being happy in that time. So as you're raising 2 beautiful little girls, and how do you keep that materialistic? So we all learn about that and society and wanting more. How do you educate them on what you've learned?
Number one, we model it, and I do want to start by saying that there is nothing wrong with desiring fancy things. There's nothing wrong with it. If you naturally, abundantly attract money in your life, enjoy it. Go on beautiful vacations, live in a beautiful home, drive the nicest car you can, properly afford. But the problem is that we do that at the expense of the things that really matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference. Like, we're not telling them that you can't have the, name brand everything. Like, if you want fancy things, like, this is what it takes to get there. However, is your health in check? Is your faith in check? Are your relationships in check? What are you sacrificing? Because when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else.
Yeah. The thing to be careful of is, using those things as your way to derive happiness.
Correct.
Or even success for that matter. I mean, I think a lot of people are like, well, I need this in order to be happy. And that's where I think things run off the rails, and where we ran off the rails. It's like we needed the fancy house, the fancy cars to be happy. And now, we can build a nice house again, but we recognize completely that that's not where our happiness and our joy is derived from.
It is comfort though. I mean, our daughters share a bedroom right now. Like, that's not ideal for them. They're 3 years apart. They're both girls. They're, that we knew that would only work for so long, for their happiness and as they grow and mature. So we knew this was temporary as well. Like, this was really a life experiment. We became guinea pigs to say, like, could this work, and what would benefit by us doing it? Like, if we really put our money where our mouth is when it came to our priorities, like what? And so, I mean, just think about what the kids have already seen in modeling that.
Yeah.
So
what's cool is you're sharing this story. I mean, I guess, did you, Lance, did you already know Hal, or was it Brandy that knew Hal first and made that introduction in the Miracle Morning? And what prompted you to say, man, our story, let's write a book? Who thought of that?
Well, I think we've both been talking about writing a book for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Hal approached us and asked us to write it. And we're like, dude, we can write this in like 3 months, because we have.
It's already written pretty much. And so to answer your question, so I met Hal at an event, and he and I were both speaking at an event. We were in the, lounge prior to the event. And I just, introduced myself, and we just got to know each other over the weekend. And so he had invited me to come to his event. And I said, unfortunately, my sister is giving birth, and I'm her person. So I'm, thinking in my brain, what about my husband?
That's right. You talked about this.
That's how. And then, so he went to the event, and that's how he met Hal. And just over the years, we just really, our families like each other. We just all like each other, and we became friends, and we went and stayed with them last spring, about a year ago. We went and saw him out in Austin. And shortly after, he sent us a message, and he said, what do you guys think about writing the Miracle Morning for couples? And we said, well, we had talked to him about our couples morning routine. So we started our own couples morning routine after before we even wrote the book. It just became like the time that worked for us, having 2 young kids, to be able to do our own savers. And then we would just join together and sit on the couch together with a cup of coffee. And we would just, it just morphed into like, what's important? Okay, what's important is that we appreciate each other every day. We check in every day to see how we're doing, like, what are the basics? And so that's how it came to be. And Hal was like,
we were just like joking, talking about it, about our morning together, and how we, started by using some of the savers and just doing them together, but then it morphed into something where we did our own personal morning routine, and then we would come together and do a few things. And over time, it just got much more concise and intentional. Like, we knew exactly, like, these are the steps we're going to do. And we were just chatting with him. He's like, dude, that's like brilliant. That's like great. Let's write a book together.
Right.
Well, how long did it take you to write it?
3 months.
Oh, so you weren't exaggerating.
No.
Yeah. We had a deadline.
In retrospect, let's not do that again.
We won't do that again. Even though we felt we had it all written, it was quite the process.
What was the process? Is it a little bit every day, or did you guys just get together and just start?
Well, let's start with, we messed up real bad to start.
Technically, if you really, Dan, honestly, we probably wrote it in about 12 weeks. No, not 12.
Like 8 weeks. We probably wrote it in 8 weeks, because so now, keep in mind, we've created a couple of courses for couples. So a lot of our content, our philosophy and things like that were already created. We just needed to put it in more of a book format. So we had some of it done.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just started by, talking about the topics, and then Lance is a great writer. And so he would wake up really early and write in the morning. And then, we'd talk and he'd just keep writing. And then we gave you like a long weekend,
yeah, so
right?
she takes off with the kids on a weekend.
We go to the
This is kind of a
beach.
side story, but she
Yeah.
takes off with the kids and her sister, and my brother-in-law, and they leave me home for like 3 or 4 days, where I literally probably didn't take a shower at all, Dan, and I'm supposed to just write, like almost like practically finish this thing. And I got to so many points of writer's block and whatever else, and it was all over the place. And this is where it
was a hot mess.
This is the whole strengths thing that comes in.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it was like, I think I'm a great writer,
Yes.
but I need to be kind of brought back in.
Be in your
He's not a big picture thinker.
It's just like, I'll just start writing all over the place.
Yeah.
And so Brandy comes home and I'm frazzled and I'm lost. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. She's also like, well, you're writing this and my voice isn't even in it.
So he's stressed out when I get home. I start reading this book and I'm like, oh God, we're not putting
this marriage is over.
Everything is over. Right? Exactly. And you need to go shower, hand me the book and go. And so we literally just were like, okay, time out, stop. And so we had to restructure the way the book was laid out, get all the topics, everything reorganized, which is what I should have done in the beginning, because that's where my brain comes in, like the big picture vision, step by step, how to break things down. And we recreated the framework. We wrote Hal and Honore and said, we'd like to change the layout a little bit. I know it's different than previous Miracle Mornings, but we think it's a better flow because there's a separateness and togetherness component that we have to add to this, like to really explain why you do both the members and team. And so we went to town from that point forward, and we're both, I had a sciatic nerve issue that went on for like a month after we were done with the book because we sat for so long.
We'd get up together at 4 a.m. and just write, and,
until we started homeschooling the kids, and then we'd write again, or we'd trade off. Okay, you get a couple hours in, then you get a couple hours in. Yeah, it was a lot.
Did that process pull you even closer together?
Oh yeah. Finishing the book was
awesome for our marriage. The beginning part of it was a little funky, and there were definitely some fights that we had, some arguing, which, mind you, we're not opposed to arguing in a relationship.
No, it's how you get through
it's healthy.
Natural. Yeah,
it's natural.
It was a challenge, really.
It was a challenge. But the figuring out and persevering, and again, going back to our own philosophy and saying, Brandy, what are your strengths? Lance, what are your strengths? All right, let's do this as a team, a proper team, and move forward as if we're going to win. We're going to win this. It's going to be an awesome book. We're going to deliver something amazing to the world and
help a lot of people. And you did it. You won together.
We're super proud of it. What's funny is that, in 8 weeks, the other authors I'm sure wouldn't mind me saying, but in 8 weeks, we wrote the longest Miracle Morning book out there.
Yeah.
It's too long.
True story. It's too long.
It's long.
Right.
I didn't think so.
You didn't?
So I read the Miracle Morning. I've seen Hal speak several times. I met him at a mortgage conference and thought, this is when he was fairly new. This was probably 10 years ago. Maybe not that long. Close, but read his book, and it was, for the most part, life-changing. And then I read For Salespeople, and there was one other. And so when I saw your book, I thought, okay, I'm trying to think how they would apply it to a couple, but I didn't read it until just a few weeks ago. And it is different. It was, truly awesome for you listeners out there that haven't had a chance, or if you've already read Miracle Morning, you got to get Miracle Morning for Couples for sure, because it's designed differently. It's designed, Miracle Morning was almost like designed for yourself, how you start your day individually, and Miracle Morning for Couples, the whole time you're seeing how it helps your marriage or relationship. And man, I really, really enjoyed it. So how do people get a hold of you?
Legendarycouples.com is the best place. Yeah, that'll take you anywhere. It'll, we have a free relationship planning guide on our website that people have a lot of success with.
Yeah, I was actually using, that's what we were talking about, Dan, that we used ourselves to
the relationship
do what
planning
we did
guide.
here,
That's why we give it away for free, because it was the first step for us to transform everything else. And so we just put it into a step-by-step process, created a workbook and a video. It's like a little course, and you get it for free on our website. That along with what we call our Reconcile and Reset.
That's for couples that are really almost in crisis.
Yeah, if
really.
you got to really, there's some forgiveness thing, that has to happen like that. We throw that in there as well, because, some people can't even get to creating a vision.
We can't talk about our strengths because I
don't like him
this
or
person.
her. Yeah. Right.
So.
True.
I get it.
We now know how this goes as we, work with more and more people. So, that and on our website, and we're on, social media. I'm mostly active on Instagram, but.
So what's next for you guys? Because
another book is coming.
An agent?
We've already
need
told
an agent.
We've told Honor Ray too that we're going to write another book. And
our Legendary Family Academy is coming out later this summer, which is it's a membership where you can get tools and resources and habit reminders to grow as a couple and take your kids along.
Yeah, I mean it's a phenomenal idea, and it's a way to add value to lots of people. And I know what you guys are thinking, and it's absolutely a way to grow from where you're at, and I love it. You've definitely inspired me, and I look forward to meeting you guys in person. I'm over here just across town, and it's kind of crazy. And we run a lot in the same circles. We've got a lot of
same friends.
Similar friends, yeah. So it'd be great to introduce you to my wife, and let her continue to hear the story. But I want to really thank you guys for your time. I really enjoyed it, and look forward to talking more in the future.
Right. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Dan.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.